How many families could have caught the signs earlier if they hadn't assumed it was just imagination or confusion? Because when someone you love starts describing things that clearly didn't take place, their brain may already be filling in memory gaps with fiction. Many seniors show early signs of dementia through made-up stories, but families often overlook them until it's too late. In this video, you'll discover 7 fake stories that revealed dementia years before the diagnosis, and years before anyone understood what was really happening. Let's get to it. Number 1. Saying they still have a job to get to. 2 years before her diagnosis with Alzheimer's, 76-year-old Joan began setting her alarm clock again. At first, her husband thought it was harmless. She'd always liked routine, and maybe she just wanted more structure. But soon, she started laying out work clothes the night before and packing a lunch in the morning. When he asked why, she shrugged and said, "Can't fall behind on deadlines." Then it escalated over time. Joan began pacing by the door with a folder full of junk mail, waiting for a ride that never came. One day, she walked to the neighbor's house and asked if they were ready for the meeting. That was the day her family finally sought help and wished they had done it sooner. Experts confirm that when dementia affects memory, the brain often fills in gaps using deeply familiar patterns, like jobs or daily routines. These made-up stories aren't lies. They're unconscious fabrications, built from old identity roles, often signaling the brain is losing its grasp on reality. New dementia videos daily. Feel free to subscribe. Number 2. Believing they're being filmed or watched. Leonard, 79, began acting strangely whenever visitors came over. At first, his wife brushed it off as nothing, but then he started whispering things like, "They're rolling," and asking her to act natural. One day, he refused to sit at the dining table, saying, "They need a better angle." Soon, it crossed a line. Leonard began speaking to empty corners of the room, saying, "Was that good enough?" Or, "Do I have to say it again?" The turning point came when he accused his son of hiding microphones in the curtains. That week, the family finally took him for an evaluation. Doctors diagnosed Leonard with frontotemporal dementia, 2 years after the first early sign appeared. Studies have shown that certain forms of dementia can trigger delusions involving observation or performance. As awareness of social context deteriorates, the brain may invent stories to explain a growing sense of unease, including the belief that they're being watched, tested, or recorded. These fake scenarios may seem far-fetched, but they're often the brain's desperate attempt to impose logic on confusion. Number 3. Saying they just spoke to someone long gone. 3 years before her diagnosis of Alzheimer's, Rose, 84, began casually mentioning phone calls with old friends. Her daughter thought nothing of it. Rose had been chatty, and she often reminisced about people from her past. But then she started saying things like, "I just talked to Aunt Lucy," even though Lucy had passed away long ago. When the family gently corrected her, Rose insisted, "She sounded tired, but she's fine." Then it escalated. She claimed her childhood friend had come over for tea, describing what she wore and what they talked about. That week, she asked her son if he had seen the baby she'd been babysitting all afternoon. That's when they finally scheduled a full evaluation and got the result they'd already feared. Neurologists explain that in Alzheimer's, the brain starts misfiring between memory, imagination, and reality. The result is a phenomenon called confabulation, where vivid, false experiences are made to fill in cognitive gaps. These aren't intentional lies. They're mental constructions built from familiar people and places, and often go unnoticed until the stories become too elaborate to ignore. That's 2 years of mistreatment, 2 years of confusing behavior, dismissed as just aging. And for many families, 2 years they'll never get back. These fake stories may seem small, but catching them early could mean more time, more clarity, and fewer regrets. Let's keep going. Number 4. Saying they're in a different city or country. Stephen began referring to his neighborhood as if it were somewhere else. One morning, he looked out the window and said, "So this is Seattle in the winter," even though he lived in Las Vegas. At first, his son assumed he was joking, but soon he began asking when they were heading back home, to a town he hadn't lived in for over 40 years. Then things took an unsettling turn. He started asking why his suitcase wasn't packed, and once told a neighbor, "I'm only here for a few more nights." When he tried to leave the house with a bag full of toiletries, his family knew something was wrong. Doctors soon diagnosed him with vascular dementia at age 71, and his family regretted not recognizing the signs nearly 2 years earlier. Experts note that dementia can severely affect orientation, not just in time, but in place. As the brain's internal map breaks down, the person may create fictional explanations to make sense of the unfamiliar. Believing they're traveling or in a different city isn't just confusion. It's a constructed story meant to explain why their surroundings no longer feel like home. Number 5. Saying there's a secret place in the house. 2 years before her diagnosis of Lewy body dementia, 77-year-old Barbara began avoiding the guest bedroom. When her husband asked what was wrong, she whispered, "That wall leads somewhere. I hear footsteps." She started closing the door tightly and placing towels along the floor like she was blocking something out. A few months later, she refused to sleep in her bedroom, saying someone was coming through the passage. One morning, she tried to pry up the hallway carpet with a screwdriver. That's when her family finally sought help. Neurologists explain that some types of dementia cause spatial and environmental misinterpretations. The brain begins to distort how rooms are connected, what sounds mean, or where boundaries are. When this happens, seniors may invent detailed stories, not just about people, but about architecture itself. Claims about secret doors or tunnels often mean the brain is blending imagination with perception. Number 6. Believing the TV is speaking to them. 82-year-old Bruce began turning the volume up unusually high during news broadcasts. At first, his wife assumed his hearing was getting worse, but then he said something strange. "They're talking to me again." He started answering questions aloud during commercials and once whispered, "I told them I'd think about it." One afternoon, he grew agitated, saying the anchor on TV had warned him about the neighbors. That night, he unplugged the TV and covered it with a blanket. That was the day the family scheduled a neurological exam. Doctors diagnosed Bruce with Alzheimer's 3 years after his first strange behavior was noticed. Research shows that dementia can disrupt the brain's ability to process sensory input, like sound, language, and intent. This can lead to a breakdown in how external voices are interpreted, causing the person to believe TV characters are addressing them directly. These fabricated interactions often start subtly, but grow more intense over time, revealing that the brain is no longer separating fiction from reality. Number 7. Believing they own the house they grew up in. 2 years before her diagnosis of Alzheimer's, Patricia, 69, began referring to her living room as the old den. Her husband thought she was just reminiscing, but then Patricia started giving directions like, "The stairs to the cellar are past the kitchen," even though the house had no basement. She began calling the guest room "my brother's room," and insisted the neighbor's shed used to be a swing set. Then the situation grew more concerning. Patricia told the mailman, "My father built this house after the war," but the house was purchased only 10 years earlier. When she started telling visitors not to touch the woodwork because it's original, the family finally sought a full neurological workup for answers. Dementia researchers note that as short-term memory fades, Some seniors mentally relocate to a time and place where they still feel grounded, often their childhood home. When that confusion grows severe, the brain may invent a full narrative around it, including ownership, layout, and history. These stories feel protective, but they often mark a deeper collapse in time orientation and personal identity. If someone you love is telling stories that don't make sense, don't just smile and nod. Because in dementia, these stories aren't harmless, they're warnings. The earlier you recognize them, the more time you have to get answers and take action before things get worse.
And there you have it. What are your thoughts? Next, dive into this video for more essential tips to transform your health and help you thrive. You're going to love it. Thanks for watching Healthy End, and we'll see you there.